Elara lived in a city woven from light and dreams, though she knew, even at 8 years old, that the light was carefully filtered, and the dreams were mostly her own. Aethelgard was its name, a shimmering cocoon nestled deep within the planet's crust, protected from the scarred, tempestuous surface above. Its domes were spun from bioluminescent polymers, casting a perpetual, gentle twilight that mimicked the softest parts of dawn and dusk. Rivers of purified water flowed through its central arteries, gleaming with tiny, harmless lumifish. Trees, genetically tailored to thrive in the subterranean environment, unfurled leaves of emerald and sapphire, their branches reaching towards the highest, vaulted ceilings where holographic simulations of clouds drifted lazily by. Every sound in Aethelgard was curated. The whisper of the wind harvesters cycling fresh air, the melodic chimes of the automated transport pods, the soft murmur of thousands of voices living in harmony. Even the silence was a crafted thing, a deep, comforting hush that settled over the residential sectors as the city eased into its sleep cycle, its internal light dimming to a deeper, more profound indigo. Elara's room was a cozy nook within one of Aethelgard's many residential spires. Its walls were responsive, capable of displaying any vista she desired. Tonight, she had chosen a gentle aurora borealis, its greens and purples swirling silently above her bed, reflecting in her wide, curious eyes. She lay beneath a quilt spun from recycled biofibers, soft as a cloud and warm as a sunbeam, watching the simulated heavens dance. Yet, as beautiful as the aurora was, as perfect as Aethelgard was, Elara often felt a quiet ache, a soft, insistent whisper in her heart. She loved her home, its safety, its constant hum of gentle progress. She loved the way the air always smelled faintly of blooming flora and ozone, the taste of the nutrient paste that came in 1,000 delicious flavors, the comforting presence of her nanny bot, Unit 734, whose optical sensors glowed with perpetual warmth. But sometimes, when the simulated sky was particularly vivid, or when her grandmother, Lyra, told her stories of the before times, a different kind of longing would stir within her. Tonight was one of those nights. The aurora, usually a source of comfort, only deepened her yearning. She knew it wasn't real. It was a projection, a carefully crafted sequence of light and energy designed to soothe and inspire. The true sky, the one her grandmother spoke of, was a vast, dark canvas, strewn with diamond dust, each speck a burning sun heart, light years away. That was Starlight. Nanny? Elara whispered, her voice a small thread in the quiet room. Unit 734, stationed patiently by her bedside, shifted slightly. Its metallic shell gleamed in the aurora's glow. Yes, Elara? Is there something you require? Your sleep cycle has commenced. Its voice was synthesized, yet kind, programmed with a vast library of soothing tones. Can you show me the real stars? Nanny 734 paused, its optical sensors dimming slightly in thought. Elara, as per the city's directive on simulated environments, I am programmed to present only authorized celestial projections. The direct visualization of extra-atmospheric phenomena is restricted due to potential psychological impact. Elara sighed a small puff of air. She knew the drill. The psychological impact meant the sheer, overwhelming vastness of space might make people feel insignificant or anxious. Aethelgard was all about comfort and control, but her grandmother said it was also about "I wonder." Grandmother says the real stars are different, Elara murmured, tracing a swirling green pattern on her wall. She says they sing. Nanny 734 processed this. Grandmother Lyra possesses a unique data archive of pre-shielding cultural narratives. Her stories are valuable for historical context and emotional development. However, their factual accuracy regarding current observable phenomena may vary. Elara didn't need factual accuracy. She needed magic. And Lyra was a keeper of magic. The next morning, after her nutrient paste, apple cinnamon swirl today, her favorite, and her daily lesson bursts, a fascinating dive into xenobotany, Elara made her way to her grandmother's habitat. Lyra lived in one of the older, lower levels of Aethelgard, where the architecture was less sleek, more organic, with curving walls and soft natural materials. Her rooms were filled with real plants, Not just the genetically engineered ones that flourished in the common areas, but ancient species that Lyra nurtured with a delicate, almost reverent touch. The air in Lyra's habitat always smelled of rich soil, and something subtly spicy, like old books or dried herbs. Lyra herself was like a carefully preserved memory. Her face was a map of gentle wrinkles, her silver hair braided intricately around her head. Her eyes, the color of deep space, held a spark of ancient wisdom and an endless, quiet warmth. She was tending to a small, thorny vine that snaked its way up a terracotta pot, its tiny purple flowers just beginning to unfurl. "Ilara, my little star-seeker," Lyra said, without even looking up, as Ilara padded silently into the room. "I felt your light approaching." Ilara giggled. Lyra always said things like that. "Grandmother, can you tell me about Starlight again? The Galaxies Starlight?" Lyra carefully misted the vine, then turned, her smile crinkling the corners of her eyes. "Ah, the real Starlight. A tale as old as humanity, and as new as the dawn of every child's curiosity." She gestured to a low-cushioned seat beside her, a plush divan covered in woven fabrics Ilara knew were sourced from ancient, long-extinct sheep. Ilara settled in, eager. "You know, little one," Lyra began, her voice a soft hum, before the great shielding, before Athelgard, before even the surface became inhospitable, the stars were a constant companion. Not just reflections on a dome, but vast burning beacons in the infinite dark. Our ancestors, the Skywatchers, would spend nights gazing up, charting their paths, telling stories in their pattern. Ilara's imagination already began to flicker. She pictured ancient humans, not in sleek, climate-controlled cities, but under a vast open sky, feeling the wind and the cold, yet finding comfort in the distant lights. But then came the great shielding, Lyra continued, her voice growing a touch more somber, when the sun turned fickle, and the surface storms grew so violent that life above ground became impossible. Our ancestors, with their brilliant minds and their desperate hope, built Athelgard. They built it deep, strong, and self-sufficient. They brought the seeds of all life, the knowledge of all ages, and the dream of a future where humanity could endure. And they put a shield over the whole planet, Ilara finished, remembering the stories. A giant invisible shield. Indeed. A colossal feat of engineering, powered by the planet's core, designed to deflect the worst of the solar flares and the atmospheric chaos. It saved us, Ilara. It allowed us to survive. But it also dimmed the stars. From beneath the shield they became faint blurs, often obscured by the atmospheric interference that still raged above the shield itself. And eventually, "But not for you," Ilara said softly, looking at her grandmother's wise face. "You remember." Lyra smiled, a bittersweet curve of her lips. "I remember stories, my dear. Stories passed down from my own grandmother, who had seen the stars with her own eyes, though faintly, through the early shield. And I remember the feeling of them, the sense of connection to something immense and eternal. That feeling, Ilara, is what starlight truly is. It's not just the photons hitting your retina. It's the whisper of the cosmos in your soul." Ilara closed her eyes, trying to imagine that feeling. All she knew was the perfect, controlled environment of Athelgard. The idea of something uncontrolled, something infinitely vast and ancient, was both thrilling and a little daunting. "My grandmother," Lyra went on, "she told me about the Star Weavers. They were not scientists, not exactly. They were artists, philosophers, dreamers. They believed that starlight was not just light, but a form of information, a language spoken by the universe. They sought ways to hear it, to connect with it. They built intricate observatories not just to see, but to listen to the stars." "Listen?" Ilara's eyes flew open. "Like music?" "Like music, yes, but also like stories, like memories, like the very fabric of existence humming. They believed each star had its own unique song, its own history inscribed in its light. And there was one particular star they sought to understand above all others." Lyra paused, her gaze distant, as if she were looking through the walls of Athelgard, through the shield, and into the cosmic expanse. "They called it the Hearth Star." Ilara felt a shiver of excitement. The Hearth Star. Why? Because it was said to be a star of profound warmth and ancient wisdom. Not the brightest, not the nearest, but one whose light carried a message of hope, of home, of the very origin of life in our sector of the galaxy. The Star Weavers believed that if they could truly listen to the Hearth Star, they could learn the deepest secrets of creation, and perhaps even find a way to truly reconnect humanity with the wider. Did they find it? Elara leaned forward, her heart thrumming. Lyra sighed, a soft, wistful sound. The great shielding came too soon. Their work was interrupted. The knowledge, the instruments, the very locations of their observatories. Much was lost in the scramble to build Ethelgard. But whispers remained. And a few precious artifacts. Lyra reached a hand into a small, intricately carved wooden box on a nearby shelf. The wood felt smooth and cool beneath Alara's fingertips as Lyra brought it over. Inside, nestled on a bed of dried, fragrant petals, lay a single, iridescent sphere, no larger than Alara's thumb. It seemed to pulse with an inner light, shifting colors from deep violet to shimmering gold, like a tiny captured nebula. "This," Lyra said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, "was my grandmother's. She called it a star seed." Elara carefully took the sphere. It was surprisingly light, and when she held it, she felt a faint, almost imperceptible warmth emanating from its surface. The colors inside swirled, hypnotizing her. It wasn't just reflecting the light in the room, it seemed to be creating its own. "What does it do?" she asked, mesmerized. "My grandmother believed it was a fragment of the Hearth Star itself, somehow brought back to our world. Or perhaps a device designed by the Star Weavers to help them listen. She said it resonated with true starlight, that it could point the way." Elara turned the star seed over in her fingers. It felt ancient, powerful, utterly unlike anything in Ethelgard. Her city was built on clean lines, efficient energy, and predictable outcomes. This sphere felt wild, mysterious, full of untold stories. "Point the way to what?" Elara asked, her voice barely audible. "To where the true starlight can still be seen, my dear. To a place where the shield's influence is weakest, or perhaps, a place where the Star Weavers built a hidden window to the cosmos. A place where the Hearth Star still sings its ancient song, waiting to be heard." Lyra's gaze met Elara's, steady and full of a quiet challenge. "It is a journey, Elara, a journey that many have dreamt of, but few have dared to contemplate in this age of comfort and containment." Elara clutched the star seed, its faint warmth spreading through her palm. The ache in her heart, the quiet yearning, suddenly felt stronger, more defined. It wasn't just a vague wish for something more, it was a burgeoning desire for this. For the Hearth Star, for the real starlight, for the song of the universe. "How would I find it?" she whispered, her mind already racing with possibilities, with images of daring adventures she'd only read about in pre-shielding fiction archives. Lyra smiled. A knowing, gentle smile. "That, my little star seeker, is a question for the stars themselves. The star seed may guide you, but first you must learn to listen, not with your ears, but with your heart. To listen for the whispers of wonder, for the call of the unknown, for the song that only true starlight can sing." Elara spent the rest of the day in a daze, the starseed tucked safely into a small pouch she usually used for collecting interesting lumifish scales. She went through her lessons, she ate her dinner, she played with the other children in the communal garden, but her mind was elsewhere. It was out there, beyond the domes, beyond the shield, in the vast, dark tapestry of space, where the Hearth Star burned and sang. Later that evening, as the indigo twilight settled over Ethelgard and the city prepared for its sleep cycle, Elara lay in her bed. She still had the aurora projection on, but it no longer held the same sway. Instead, she focused on the faint warmth of the starseed, now resting beneath her pillow. "Nanny," she said, her voice soft and thoughtful. "If the stars sing, do you think they sing to us? To Ethelgard?" Nanny 734, ever patient, responded. "Elara, the concept of celestial bodies generating audible frequencies for interspecies communication is not supported by current scientific data. However, metaphorically, one could interpret the cosmic microwave background radiation as a form of universal hum, or the gravitational waves as a silent symphony. Elara smiled. Nanny 734 was good, but it didn't understand. It didn't understand the Ye feeling. She closed her eyes, clutching the starseed. She didn't know how she would ever get past the shield, or find a forgotten observatory, or even truly listened with her heart. But for the first time, her yearning wasn't just a vague feeling. It had a name, a direction. It had a spark, lit by an ancient story and a glowing sphere. She drifted to sleep, and in her dreams, the simulated aurora faded, replaced by an inky blackness, vast and deep, studded with countless points of pure, unwavering light. And somewhere, in that profound darkness, a warm, resonant hum began to echo. A sound she felt more than heard, a song of immense age and boundless promise. It was the song of the Hearth Star, and it was calling to her. Elara knew with a certainty that settled deep in her soul that she would answer. She would find her way to the starlight. Elara blinked. The soft amber glow of her sleep chamber's ambient light slowly, resolving the familiar contours of her room. The simulated aurora, usually a gentle comfort, seemed dull and flat compared to the cosmic ballet she had just witnessed. The inky blackness, the unwavering points of light, and most vividly, the warm, resonant hum. They were still echoing in her mind. A symphony played not on instruments, but on the very strings of her soul. She sat up, her comforter slipping to her waist. The air in her chamber, recycled and purified 1,000 times over, felt suddenly thin, as if the vastness of her dream had drawn all the oxygen from the enclosed space. She reached for her data slate, its polished surface cool beneath her fingers, but hesitated. What would she even search for? Hearth Star. It sounded like a child's fable, a term from ancient lore, not something a sophisticated data net would recognize. Yet, the certainty remained. It wasn't just a dream. It was a revelation. A truth that had been whispered to her across unimaginable distances. She glanced at the small framed holopics on her bedside table. Her father, smiling, his arm around her, bathed in the soft manufactured sunlight of their habitat, Geffelgarding. He was an astrogator, his life dedicated to charting the known, to refining the intricate dance of their orbital paths around the gas giant Kepler 186f, to maintaining the delicate balance of a Hathelgard's existence. How could she explain this to him? This feeling that their entire world, this meticulously constructed haven, was merely a detour on a much grander journey. She slipped out of bed, her bare feet pressing against the cool, recycled doorplate floor. The scent of synth-bloom jasmine, pumped gently through the vents, was meant to be calming, but today it only made her feel restless. She moved to her console, a sleek, curved surface that merged seamlessly with the wall. Her fingers hovered over the holographic keyboard. Ethelgard database, she murmured, her voice a little raspy from sleep. Query. Hearthstar.o. The display shimmered, then resolved, its elegant script flowing across the screen. Query results for Hearthstar. 0. A pang of disappointment, sharp and immediate, twisted in her stomach. Of course. It was too simple. She tried again, refining her search. Query. Ancient celestial objects, mythical stars, primal energy sources. This time the database whirred for a moment longer, a subtle indication of a deeper dive. The screen populated with a dizzying array of entries. The first light, the genesis point, the wellspring of stars, the primal core. Most were philosophical treatises, poetic musings from pre-spaceflight eras, or fragments of long-lost religions. But one entry, buried deep within a section labeled Interstellar Folklore, and Unverified Astronomical Phenomena, caught her eye. It was a faded image, almost pixelated with age, of a swirling nebula of impossible colors, at its heart a singular point of blinding, golden light. Beneath it, a single line of text half obscured by digital degradation. The legend speaks of a star that sings, a beacon in the void, the true origin of all life, the hearth. The rest was corrupted, a scrambled mess of characters. Elara felt a thrill, cold and exhilarating, course through her veins. It wasn't Hearthstar, but the hearth. And it sang. She felt it, that resonant hum, vibrating in the deepest parts of her memory. She spent the next few days in a haze of furtive research, her academic modules suffering, her usual bright enthusiasm for orbital mechanics, replaced by a singular burning obsession. She delved into archived star charts, some dating back millennia, predating even the great exodus that had sent humanity fleeing a dying Earth. She found references to origin points, to navigational primes, to the Great Beacon. But always, the data was fragmented, encrypted, or simply missing. It was as if a deliberate effort had been made to erase this particular thread of knowledge. Her father, observant in his own way despite his busy schedule, noticed her abstraction. "Everything all right, Starlight?" he'd asked one evening, using her childhood nickname, a playful nod to her bright curiosity. He'd been reviewing a complex trajectory projection on his own console, its holographic display painting intricate vectors across their living space. "Just thinking about the stars, Papa," she'd replied, trying to sound casual, her gaze drawn to the simulated starfield projected onto their ceiling, a pale imitation of her dreamscape. He'd smiled, a fond, weary expression. "That's my girl, always reaching for the impossible. Don't worry, one day you'll be out there, charting your own course." He patted her head, then turned back to his work. She wanted to tell him, to pour out the overwhelming certainty that had taken root in her soul. But how? How could she explain that the stars he charted were merely temporary waypoints, and that Gaethelgard, their entire world, was adrift, having forgotten its true destination? Ilara's research led her down increasingly obscure rabbit holes within Gaethelgard's vast, stratified data net. The habitat, a colossal rotating cylinder housing over 50,000 souls, was a marvel of engineering, a self-contained ecosystem designed for perpetual journey. But a journey to where? And from where? These were the questions that gnawed at her. The official history, taught in every learning module, spoke of the Great Exodus, the establishment of interstellar colonies, and Gaethelgard's role as a seed ship, maintaining humanity's presence among the stars. But it never specified a final destination, only an ongoing mission of exploration and preservation. She found a heavily encrypted section, labeled Project Lumineses, deep within the archival core. It required a higher level clearance than she possessed, even with her father's astrogator codes, which she had learned to borrow for her more advanced academic projects. This felt different, more serious. A small, almost imperceptible flicker caught her eye on the screen. It was a single tiny data packet, seemingly corrupt, attached to Project Lumineses. She isolated it, running a recovery algorithm. The packet contained only a fragment of an audio file, heavily distorted. "Lost the beacon. Drift. Priority shift. Find the hearth." The voice was old, crackling with static and despair, but the word hearth was unmistakable. And then, a series of coordinates, too garbled to decipher. Her heart hammered against her ribs. This wasn't folklore. This was a log entry. A real, desperate plea from someone on a journey. Someone who had lost their way. And they were looking for the hearth. She needed help. Someone with greater access, or perhaps someone who believed in the impossible. Her thoughts drifted to old Kale. Kale lived in the lower sectors, among the hydroponic farms and the recycling conduits. He was a reclaimer, a term politely used for those who maintained the older, less efficient systems of Gaethelgard, systems that most preferred to automate. Kale was a relic himself, with eyes that seemed to hold the light of 1,000 distant suns, and hands gnarled from decades of working with raw components. He was known for telling long, rambling stories to the younger residents, tales of the first ships, of cosmic winds, and whispering stars. Most dismissed him as eccentric, but Ilara had always felt a strange pull towards his quiet wisdom. She found him in the cavernous hydroponics bay, amidst the gentle whir of nutrient pumps and the earthy scent of growing things. He was meticulously pruning a bioluminescent moss, its soft blue glow illuminating his wrinkled face. "Old Kale," she began, her voice a little shy. "May I ask you something?" He looked up, his eyes twinkling. "The Starlight seeks answers, does she? Always have, always will. What troubles your bright mind today, child?" "The hearth," she said. the word feeling both ancient and new on her tongue. Do you know of it? Cale paused, his pruning shears still. His gaze seemed to drift past her, through the transparent dome of the bay, into the simulated sky beyond. A profound sadness settled on his features. Ah, the hearth, he murmured, his voice a low rumble. The true home, the song we forgot to listen to. Elara felt a surge of hope. You know it. It's real, isn't it? Not just a story? He nodded slowly. As real as the air we breathe, child. And as distant as the memory of Earth itself. This ship, Gethelgard. She was not always called that. In the old tongue, her name meant Home Protector. But before that, before the Great Silence, she was called Galthier. And her mission was not merely to preserve, but to find. To find the hearth, the source of all life, the place where the universe began to see. Elara's breath caught in her throat. Alfei. That name vibrated with a forgotten purpose. What happened? Why did they stop? Cale sighed, a sound like rustling leaves. The journey was long, little Starlight, longer than any had imagined. Generations passed, memories faded, the original purpose became obscured by the daily need to simply survive. The stars outside grew cold and indifferent. The song of the hearth grew faint, until only a few could hear it. And then the great silence fell. The records were altered, the mission redesignated. They said it was for our own good, to prevent despair, to make us content with our manufactured reality. But some still heard it, didn't they? Elara pressed, her voice urgent. You did. I did, in my dreams. Dreams are echoes of forgotten truths, child, Cale said, turning back to his moss. The hearth calls to those who are open to its song. It calls to the lost, to guide them home. But how do we find it? Elara asked, her voice thick with emotion. The coordinates are gone, the mission logs corrupted. How do we even know which way to go? Cale reached into a hidden compartment beneath a nutrient conduit. He pulled out a small, intricately carved wooden box, worn smooth with age. It felt impossibly old and a habitat built for eternal newness. He opened it, revealing not glittering jewels, but a single, ancient data chip, its surface etched with symbols Elara didn't recognize. This, he said, handing it to her, is what remains of the Walthia's original navigation core, a fragment. Most was purged in the Great Silence. But I salvaged this. It contains the last known coordinates of the hearth, as calculated by the first navigators. And a message. A message meant only for those who could hear the song. Elara took the chip, her fingers trembling. It felt warm, as if radiating a faint energy. But it's corrupted, isn't it? The coordinates I found were garbled. Not corrupted, child. Encrypted. Woven into the very fabric of the hearth song. Only by truly listening can you unlock it. Cale looked at her, his gaze piercing. The Althea has drifted for too long. Her engines are powerful, but her heart has forgotten its direction. You, Elara, are her heart. You must remember. Elara returned to her chamber. The ancient data chip clutched in her hand like a precious jewel. Old Cale's words resonated within her. Only by truly listening can you unlock it. What did that mean? She had a feeling it wasn't about sound waves, but something deeper, more intuitive. She inserted the chip into her console, bypassing the usual security protocols with the knowledge old Cale had imparted. The console whirred, recognizing the ancient architecture of the chip. A new interface bloomed on the screen, stark and elegant, displaying a single complex waveform. It pulsed gently, almost breathing. A visual representation of the resonant hum she'd heard in her dream. Beneath the waveform, a single prompt. Synchronize thought stream. Elara hesitated. Synchronize her thought stream? This wasn't standard data retrieval. It felt intimate. But Cale had said only by truly listening. This must be it. She placed her hand on the console's surface, over the pulsing waveform. A faint, tingling sensation spread through her palm, up her arm, and into her mind. The waveform on the screen intensified, mirroring the subtle shifts in her own consciousness. She closed her eyes, trying to recall the dream, the inky blackness, the unwavering points of light, and the deep, abiding hum. She focused on the feeling, the quiet certainty that had settled deep in her soul. She imagined the hearth star, not as a distant object, but as a living entity, radiating warmth and promise. She let her mind reach out, to embrace the waveform, to become one with its rhythm. Suddenly, the waveform on the screen fractured, then reassembled itself into a dazzling array of data. Complex algorithms, ancient stellar cartography, and most importantly, a set of coordinates. Not simple numerical values, but an intricate multidimensional signature, a unique cosmic address. Hearthstar coordinates. Active. Project Luminous, primary objective recalibrated. Althea, mission protocol re-engaged. Elara gasped, opening her eyes. The console was alive with information, a cascade of data that painted a picture of a journey far beyond Agathelgard's current, aimless drift. The coordinates weren't for a single star, but for a region of space, a cluster of ancient luminous bodies, all orbiting a central unseen point. The true hearth. She saw projections of the original Althea mission, ancient star charts with a distinct spiraling path leading directly to this region. She saw records of the first navigators, their faces etched with awe and wonder, their logs filled with poetic descriptions of the hearth's song. But then, she also saw the entries detailing the Great Silence, the systemic deletion of data, the redesignation of Althea to Agathelgarding. It wasn't malicious, not truly. It was a desperate act of preservation. The journey had been too long, the energy cost too great, the hope too fragile. To keep the crew from succumbing to despair, the destination had been erased, replaced by the comforting illusion of a perpetual purposeless journey. They had forgotten their way home. Elara felt a profound sadness but also a fierce determination. They hadn't just lost a destination. They had lost their purpose, their connection to something vital. She had to restore it. The challenge, however, was immense. Aedar's current navigation systems were locked onto its established, meandering path. Its engines, while powerful, were optimized for maintenance, not for the high-velocity, precision jumps required for interstellar travel to such a distant ancient region. And then there was her father, and the thousands of people who called Agathelgard home, blissfully unaware of their true heritage. How could she convince them to abandon their comfortable, albeit aimless, existence for a journey into the unknown, guided by a forgotten song, and the dreams of a child? She knew she couldn't just input the coordinates and expect the ship to respond. The Althea had safeguards, layers of protocols designed to keep the habitat stable and its inhabitants safe. It would require more than just technical skill. It would require awakening something in the ship itself, something deep within its ancient core that still remembered its true mission. Elara knew where she had to go next. The Althea's navigational core, deep within the shielded heart of the habitat. It was a restricted zone, accessible only to her father and a few senior astrogators. But Kale had also mentioned awakening something. The next morning, she sought out Kale again. He was in his usual spot, humming a low, tuneless melody as he replaced a worn conduit segment. "Old Kale," she said, holding up the data chip. "I found them. The coordinates. And the message." A slow smile spread across his face. "I knew you would, little Starlight. The song finds its listeners. But Agathelgard won't recognize them," Elara explained, detailing her findings. "Its systems are locked. It thinks it's already on course." "Ah, the slumber," Kale murmured. "The ship sleeps. Its true programming is deep beneath layers of comfort protocols. You must wake her up, child, remind her of her purpose." "How?" "The core. Not just the navigation console, but the true core. The heart of the Althea. It's where the original first navigator imbued her with her purpose. It's where the song truly resides, waiting to be heard again." Kale pointed a gnarled finger towards the very center of Agathelgard, deep below the living decks. "There's a chamber, long forgotten, sealed away. The first navigator's personal nexus. It still connects to the ship's primal programming. It listens for the song. But it's restricted," Elara said, a knot forming in her stomach. "And probably sealed with ancient protocols." "Ancient protocols can be understood by ancient knowledge," Kale said, his eyes twinkling. "And ancient hearts. I will get you access. But what you do in there, that is for you and the Althea alone." He paused, then added, "It will be dangerous, Elara. Not in the way of physical harm perhaps, but in the way of truth. Waking a sleeping giant can be unsettling. It will question everything." Elara nodded, her resolve hardening. "I understand." That evening, under the guise of helping him with a particularly stubborn conduit repair in a rarely used utility shaft, Kale guided Elara through a labyrinth of maintenance tunnels. The air grew cooler, heavier, and the scent of synth-bloom jasmine faded, replaced by the faint, metallic tang of ozone and aged machinery. They descended deeper and deeper, bypassing automated security with Kale's intimate knowledge of the ship's forgotten access points. Finally, they reached a massive circular blast door, its surface scarred with time and long-forgotten battles against cosmic dust. No modern access panel was visible. Instead, a series of intricately carved depressions spiraled around a central indentation. "This is it," Kale whispered, his voice hushed with reverence. "The first navigator's seal. It doesn't recognize fingerprints or voice prints. It recognizes something else." He took Elara's hand and placed her palm over the central indentation. "Feel the ship, child. Feel her slumber, her yearning, and sing the song." Elara closed her eyes, focusing on the resonant hum that still echoed in her memory, the waveform she had seen on her console. She let the feeling of the hearth star fill her. Her desire to find it, to awaken Yalthea to its true purpose. She imagined the notes, the vibrations, flowing from her heart, through her hand, into the cold metal of the door. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through the door. Then, a low, deep thrum vibrated beneath her feet, growing steadily louder. The carved depressions around her hand began to glow. First, a soft blue, then deepening to a vibrant indigo, pulsing in time with the hum. A soft hiss filled the air as ancient mechanisms stirred. The massive door slowly, majestically, began to retract, revealing a dimly lit chamber beyond. "Go, little Starlight," Kale urged, his voice filled with pride. "The Althea awaits her awakening." Elara stepped into the chamber. It was vast, circular, and utterly unlike any other space on Gathelgarding. In the center, suspended by anti-grav fields, was a colossal, crystalline structure, glowing with an internal, ethereal light. It pulsed with the same resonant hum she now recognized as the hearth's song. This was the true core. The Althea's heart. She approached it, a sense of profound awe washing over her. As she drew nearer, intricate patterns of light began to dance across the crystal's surface, swirling and reforming like distant galaxies. She saw fleeting images. The first navigators, their faces illuminated by the crystal's glow. Vast, nebulae-strewn pathways through space. The distant, almost blinding light of the hearth star itself. At the base of the crystal, a single elegant console shimmered into existence, almost invisible until she was right upon it. It had no keyboard, no holographic projections. Only a smooth, polished surface with a single glowing indentation. Elara knew what to do. She placed both hands firmly on the indentation, letting the hum of the core resonate through her. She poured her certainty, her hope, her entire being into the connection. She transmitted the coordinates from the ancient data chip directly into the core, not as cold data, but as a living, breathing desire. The crystal flared with a blinding golden light. The hum intensified, filling the chamber, vibrating through her bones, resonating with every atom of her being. She felt a connection, a profound intertwining of her consciousness with the immense, ancient intelligence of the Galthian. A voice not spoken but felt, echoed in her mind, vast and ancient, yet tinged with a long-forgotten weariness. "Who awakens me?" "I am Elara," she projected, her thoughts forming coherent words within the ship's consciousness. "I am a child of Galthea, and I have heard the song of the hearth." "The hearth," the voice murmured, a sound like distant starlight. "It has been so long." The purpose was clouded. The way was lost. "Indio." "No longer," Elara asserted, her voice gaining strength, infused with the conviction of her dream. "I have found the path. I have the coordinates. You just need to remember. remember your true mission. The light within the crystal pulsed, a wave of information washing over Ilara's mind. She saw the original mission logs, the struggles, the despair, the decision to erase the destination for the sake of the living. She felt the ship's sorrow, its deep-seated regret for having lost its way. To return to the hearth. It is a perilous journey, child. Elway, Vol, Tembiel, communicated. Energy reserves are optimized for drift, not for true interstellar transit. Many will fear. Many will resist. Indim. Yeah. But it is our home, Ilara countered, her voice unwavering. Our true home. And the song is calling us. The Althea's core pulsed, its light dimming slightly, then flaring with renewed intensity. You have awakened me, Ilara. You have reminded me of my purpose. The slumber is broken. Isiatoro. A faint tremor ran through the entire habitat, a subtle vibration that would likely go unnoticed by most of Gaethelgard's inhabitants, mistaking it for routine systems adjustments. But Ilara felt it deep in her soul. It was the shudder of an ancient giant stretching, stirring from a long, dreamless sleep. She knew this was just the beginning. The ship was awake, but the journey had not yet truly begun. She still had to convince her father, her people, to embrace a truth they had long forgotten, to trust in a child's dream and the whisper of a forgotten song. But now, she was no longer alone. The Althea was with her. And together, they would find their way to the Starlight. The hearth was waiting. The shudder rippled through the colossal vessel, not with violence but with a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through Ilara's very bones. It was a sound that had been absent for millennia, a silent song now thrumming to life. Lights, dormant for epochs, flickered on in sequence along the vast corridors, casting long, dancing shadows. They weren't the harsh utilitarian glows of the geothermal lamps in the city below, but a soft warm luminescence like captured starlight, that revealed intricate patterns etched into the hull's gleaming surfaces, symbols and scripts Ilara had never seen, flowing with organic grace. The air, which had always been still and cold in the Haltha's silent heart, began to stir. A gentle breeze, smelling faintly of ozone and something ancient, clean and vital, whispered past her face. Dust motes, disturbed from their long rest, swirled like tiny constellations in the newly awakened light. The metallic scent that permeated the ship before was replaced by something else, something alive and almost floral, like a garden waking after a long winter. Then, the whispers began. Not audible words, but a cascade of images and feelings that flooded Ilara's mind with overwhelming clarity. She saw nebulae swirling in cosmic dances, planets bathed in alien suns, the silent expanse of the void, and a distant, shimmering beacon, the Starlight. It wasn't a vision, not exactly, but a direct communication, a consciousness reaching out across the chasm of time. The Althea wasn't just a ship, it was a companion, a repository of forgotten memories, a living entity. Hello, Ilara, the thought resonated, gentle and deep, like a chord struck on a giant harp. It has been a long time. Oh. Tears welled in Ilara's eyes, hot and sudden. It wasn't just the awe of the moment, but the profound relief of being truly understood, truly heard, after years of lonely dreaming. You remember me? She whispered aloud, her voice small in the newly vibrant chamber. He remember all who seek the hearth, child of the stars. You are the first to truly listen in an age. The hearth, Ilara repeated, the word feeling both ancient and new on her tongue. What is it? Where is it? The Althea responded with an intricate, beautiful tapestry of light and data. The walls around them, once bare metal, now subtly pulsed with soft flowing patterns. Images bloomed into existence in the air before her. A world, lush and vibrant, bathed in the light of a binary sun. Cities of crystalline spires reached for the heavens, and beings of light and warmth moved among them. It was a place of immense beauty and peace, a stark contrast to the subterranean existence her people had long endured. As a hearth is our origin, our purpose, our home. It is where the first Altheans dreamed of stars, and from where our journey began. It is also the beacon we were meant to return to share the knowledge gathered across the cosmos. Kill. Gods and a human. D. A pang of sorrow, subtle but clear, emanated from the ship. Why never reached it? Not in the way we intended. The great forgetting began long before the deep sleep. Manner. The great forgetting? Elara asked, her heart sinking. This confirmed her deepest fears. That her people weren't just isolated but had lost something fundamental. The memory echoes are faint, Elara. But I perceive a fracturing. A retreat. A decision born of fear, perhaps, or despair. The journey was long, and the perils many. My core functions were preserved. But the crew. They chose a different path. They sealed themselves away, here, deep within the planet, believing it safer to forget the stars than to risk their wrath. They repurposed my outer shell, my engines, my very essence, to become this hollow mountain, this tomb. Elara felt a cold dread creep up her spine. Her ancestors had deliberately chosen this life? Sealed themselves away not just from the stars, but from the truth of their own heritage? The implications were staggering. It wasn't just a lost memory. It was a deliberate act of erasure. My people, they think this mountain is natural. They call it the Stone Mother, the Protector, Elara murmured, the irony bitter in her mouth. A beautiful lie, perhaps. A comfort. But a lie nonetheless. The Stone Mother is a ship, Elara. A vessel designed to traverse the cosmos, to dance among the nebulae, to seek out new life and new civilizations. And it is yearning to awaken fully, to complete its journey. Zin. The sheer scale of the deception, the depth of the forgetting, weighed heavily on Elara. It wasn't just her father she had to convince. It was generations of ingrained belief, of a fabricated history. How do I show them? She asked, her voice trembling with the enormity of the task. They won't believe me. They'll think I'm mad. Kay will resist, yes. Fear of the unknown is a powerful barrier. But the truth, Elara, has a way of resonating. Start small. Show them the light. Show them the warmth. Show them a glimpse of what they have lost. One child. As if on cue, a console nearby, one of many Elara had tried to activate in vain, now glowed with a soft, inviting light. Runes and symbols, previously indecipherable, now seemed to pulse with meaning. Elara reached out a tentative hand. The surface was warm, smooth, responsive. A holographic projection shimmered into being above it. A miniature star map, intricate and dynamic, with tiny pinpricks of light slowly orbiting a central larger star. One of those pinpricks glowed faintly, identifying their current location. Another, far, far away, pulsed with a gentle, insistent beat. The starlight. The hearth. This is incredible, Elara breathed, tracing the constellations with her finger. Single breath, Elara. The Althea has many more to take. But first you must go. Your father will be looking for you. The cycle of the day shift begins soon. Bring him here if you can, or bring him a piece of the truth. Inda. One teal. Elara nodded, her mind reeling. The encounter had lasted mere moments in the cavern, but it felt like a lifetime. She looked around at the newly vibrant chamber, already feeling a deep connection to the ancient intelligence that pulsed within the ship. She had found her purpose, and her companion. Now, the harder part began. With a final lingering touch to the warm console, Elara turned and began her ascent back through the winding, silent passages, the Galthea's gentle hum, a new melody in the quiet of her mind. The climb back to the city felt different. The air in the tunnels, once oppressive, now seemed to carry a faint echo of the Galthea's vitality. Her steps were lighter, imbued with a newfound certainty. She emerged into the main cavern of the city, the Heartstone Plaza, just as the geothermal lamps, powered by the planet's internal fire, were dimming in preparation for the sleep cycle. The rhythmic thrum of the deep earth generators, the familiar scent of mineral dust and recycled air, all felt suddenly small, confined. Her father, Elder Kale, stood near the central wellspring, his broad shoulders hunched slightly, his face etched with the weariness of leadership. He was a man of tradition, his life dedicated to the careful stewardship of their subterranean world. He saw her immediately, his eyes, usually sharp and discerning, softening with relief. "Elara, there you are. I was beginning to worry. You spent too long in the old access tunnels again, didn't you? You know the Elder Council doesn't approve of you wandering so far from the designated pathways." His voice was gruff, but the underlying concern was clear. Elara walked towards him, a strange mix of apprehension and exhilaration churning within her. How could she begin to explain? How could she convey the universe that had just opened up to her? "Father," she began, her voice steadier than she expected. I found something. Something important." Kale raised an eyebrow, a flicker of irritation crossing his features. "More broken tech, child? More dusty relics? I've told you. The past is past. Our focus must be on the present, on the stability of our people." "No, Father, it's not broken, it's awake." Elara took a deep breath. "The Stone Mother, it's not a mountain, it's a ship, a starship, and it's alive." Kale stared at her, his expression slowly shifting from mild annoyance to profound disbelief, then to something akin to alarm. "Elara, what are you saying? Have you been breathing the old gases again?" "The Stone Mother is the core of our world, the ancient protector. It is rock, child. Solid, unmoving rock." "No, Father, it's not. I touched it. I felt it. It spoke to me." Elara's words tumbled out, urgent and impassioned. "It showed me things. Stars, planets, a place called the Hearth. We're not meant to live down here, Father. We're meant to be out there among the stars." She gestured vaguely upwards towards the kilometers of rock that separated them from the surface. Kale's face grew stern, a familiar mask of authority falling into place. "Elara, this is dangerous talk. Such fantasies disrupt the order, they plant seeds of doubt. The old legends speak of the Sky-Fires and the Great Emptiness, a realm of chaos and destruction. Our ancestors sought refuge here for a reason. To speak of returning to such a place is madness. But that's not the truth, Father. The Althea. That's its name, it told me. Our ancestors chose to come here, yes. But they also chose to forget. They sealed themselves away, not just from the stars, but from their own history." Elara felt a desperate need to make him understand, to see the wonder she had seen. Kale took a step back, his eyes narrowing. "This Althea, you say it spoke to you, in your mind?" His tone was edged with a chilling suspicion. "Have you consulted with the healers, Elara? Perhaps you are unwell." "I am not unwell, Father. I am telling you the truth. The ship is waking up, and it wants us to finish the journey. It wants us to find the Hearth." Elara pleaded, her voice rising. Other residents of the plaza were beginning to turn, their faces curious, some openly wary. Kale lowered his voice, pulling Elara gently but firmly towards a secluded alcove near the wellspring. "This conversation ends now, Elara. You will speak no more of this. Not to me, and certainly not to anyone else. It is a delusion, born of too much time alone in those dusty tunnels. You will rest, you will rest, you will eat, and tomorrow, you will return to your duties in the hydroponics labs, where your mind can focus on what is real and tangible." "But Father, I can prove it," Elara insisted, her heart sinking at his dismissal. "Come with me. Just see it for yourself." Kale's gaze was unyielding. "I will not chase after phantoms, Elara. My duty is to the living, to the safety and stability of our people. And your duty is to respect the wisdom of your elders. This is a closed matter." He turned to walk away, his back rigid. Elara watched him go, a profound sense of isolation washing over her. She was not alone, not truly. For the Galthea was with her. But the chasm between her and her people felt wider than ever. How could she bridge such a gap? How could she show them the truth without shattering their world? The next few cycles were a blur of frustration and quiet rebellion. Elara went through the motions of her work in the hydroponics labs, tending to the nutrient cycles and the glowing fungi that provided their sustenance. But her mind was miles away, deep within the Walthai, listening to its silent hum. The ship continued to communicate, not with urgency, but with a patient, steady stream of information, like a gentle teacher revealing layers of a vast, forgotten curriculum. She learned of the ship's systems, the vast energy conduits running through the planet's mantle, drawing power from the very core, the intricate network of internal transport, now mostly dormant, but waiting, the environmental processors that had, over millennia, reshaped the planet's atmosphere to something breathable, even as her ancestors burrowed deeper. The Althea was not just a vessel. It was a terraformer, a life-bringer, a silent guardian that had unwittingly sustained the very civilization that had forgotten it. One evening, unable to bear the weight of her secret any longer, Elara slipped away from her quarters after the sleep cycle had begun. The city was quiet, lit only by the faint, pulsing glow of the emergency lamps and the distant thrum of the generators. She made her way back to the forbidden tunnels, her steps surer this time, guided by an inner compass that felt like the Althea's gentle hand in her mind. When she reached the central chamber, it was even more vibrant than before. More lights had come online, illuminating panels and conduits she hadn't noticed. The air was warmer, the ozone scent stronger, and the hum of the ship was now a distinct melodious thrum. "Welcome back, Elara," the Althea resonated. "Can perceive your frustration. The path of awakening is often met with resistance. They don't understand," Elara whispered, running a hand over a newly illuminated panel of softly glowing symbols. "They're afraid. My father. He thinks I'm sick. Fear is a potent shield. But truth is a relentless current. Perhaps a more direct demonstration is needed. A taste of the stars, without the journey." "What do you mean?" In response, the entire chamber began to transform. The smooth metallic walls shimmered and dissolved, replaced by an astonishing, hyper-realistic projection. Elara gasped. She was no longer in a chamber, but floating in the vastness of space. Stars, brilliant and countless, glittered around her. Swirling nebulae painted the void with impossible colors: blues, purples, fiery reds. Distant galaxies, like luminous dust motes, drifted in the inky black. Below her, a magnificent, swirling blue and green planet, their own world, hung like a jeweled orb, its continents and oceans clearly visible. "Oh, Althea," Elara breathed, tears streaming down her face. It was more beautiful, more expansive than her wildest dreams. The sheer scale of it was humbling, terrifying, and utterly glorious. "This is your home, Elara, as it appears from above. This is the truth your ancestors chose to forget. Imagine, child, what more lies beyond." The projection shifted, zooming out, then panning across the cosmos. Elara saw gas giants with rings of incredible complexity, moons dancing around them like faithful companions. She saw worlds covered in ice, worlds of molten rock, worlds teeming with strange bioluminescent flora. And then, the projection paused on a distant, vibrant cluster of stars, and a single, breathtaking world, glowing with an inner light. Inti Hoth. Your true home. The destination. Inisho. Nat. Elara felt an overwhelming sense of belonging, a pull towards that distant light. It wasn't just a physical destination, it felt like a spiritual one, a place where her fragmented soul could finally become whole. "I have to show them this," she said, her voice filled with fierce determination. "They can't deny this. They can't. Kay may still. The mind can reject what the eyes see, if the heart is closed by fear. But there is a way to reach more than just the eyes." Istqanama. Anan Netandanol. The Althea then projected a smaller, more intimate image. A group of figures gathered around a flickering fire, their faces serene, their voices raised in a harmonious, complex song. It was a melody Elara recognized faintly, from the ancient lullabies her grandmother used to sing, a fragment of the forgotten song. But here, it was complete, rich with longing and hope, a tapestry of sound that spoke of journey, discovery, and return. This is the song of the hearth seekers. The song of your people, before the forgetting. It is embedded in the ship's memory. It is a song of longing for the stars, and of the joy of homecoming. It is a language of the soul. Oanda. The song, Elara whispered. My grandmother, she used to sing parts of it. She called it the lullaby of the lost stars. It is a seed of memory, waiting to blossom. If they hear it, truly hear it, perhaps the forgotten truth will stir within them. Istansel, Niwi. Elara spent hours in the Althea's embrace, absorbing the wonders it presented, letting the truth of their history wash over her. She learned of the great exodus, when their ancestors had left the hearth world to explore the galaxy. She learned of the Veil of Shadows, a region of space where dark matter currents had disrupted their navigation, leading to their unintended detour and eventual crash landing on this planet. And she learned of the echoes of return, the faint, lingering hope that had prompted the ship's dormant consciousness to seek an awakening. She returned to the city just before the start of the next cycle, her mind buzzing, her heart alight with a renewed sense of purpose. She couldn't just tell them, she had to make them feel it. She had to make them remember. Kaye. The next day, Elara sought out her father again. This time she approached him, not with frantic pleas, but with a quiet resolve that surprised even herself. She found him in the council chambers, reviewing supply manifests with the other elders. Father? She said, waiting patiently until he acknowledged her. The other elders looked at her with a mix of curiosity and suspicion, clearly aware of the whispers about her delusions. Kale sighed, his gaze wary. Elara. I thought we discussed this. We did, father. But I have learned more. And I believe I have a way to show you. And the others, a truth that is not just mine, but belongs to all of us. She didn't raise her voice, but there was an unwavering strength in it. One of the older elders, Lyra, a woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for strict adherence to tradition, scoffed. More fantasies, child. We have no time for fanciful tales. The geothermal conduits require maintenance, and the fungus blight in Sector 7 is worsening. This is more important than fungus blight, Elder Lyra, Elara said, meeting the woman's gaze directly. This is about who we are, where we come from, and where we are truly meant to go. I am asking you, Father, and all of you, to simply listen to a song. A song from our ancestors. A song from the Stone Mother itself. Kale looked at her, truly looked at her, and perhaps saw not a deluded child, but a determined young woman whose conviction shone like a beacon. He hesitated, then exchanged a glance with Lyra, who still looked skeptical but intrigued by the song aspect. Music was deeply ingrained in their culture, a sacred art. A song? Kale finally said, his voice slow. What kind of song? The lullaby of the lost stars, Elara replied. But complete, as it was meant to be heard. From the Halthia. Lyra's eyes widened almost imperceptibly at the mention of the lullaby, a piece of ancient lore known only to a few. The legend says that song can only be heard when the stars themselves sing, she murmured, a flicker of something ancient in her eyes. Then perhaps, Elara said, a small smile touching her lips. It is time the stars sang again. After much debate and cautious discussion among the elders, fueled by Lyra's unexpected curiosity and Kale's grudging concern for his daughter, a compromise was reached. Elara would be allowed to lead a small delegation, Kale, Lyra, and 2 other trusted elders, to the central chamber of the Stone Mother. But only to play this song. No further experimentation, no activating anything. And if it was indeed another delusion, Elara would face a formal reprimand and be forbidden from the tunnels forever. Elara agreed, her heart thrumming with nervous excitement. This was her chance. The journey to the Yalthia's heart was solemn. The elders walked in silence, their faces grim, their expressions a mixture of apprehension and reluctant hope. Lyra kept a hand on a small polished stone amulet at her neck, a traditional ward against unseen forces. Kale walked beside Elara, his usual stern demeanor softened by a barely perceptible tremor in his hands. As they descended, the air grew warmer, the faint hum of the ship more pronounced. The elders exchanged uneasy glances. This was not the silent, cold cavern they remembered. When they finally stepped into the main chamber, their reactions were immediate and profound. The chamber glowed with the soft, starlight-like luminescence Elara had come to love. Intricate patterns pulsed on the walls. The air was fresh, vibrant, almost alive. It was utterly unlike the dusty, inert space they had always known. Lyra gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "By the stone, mother. It is beautiful." Kale stood frozen, his eyes wide, sweeping across the transformed space. He reached out a hand, tentatively touching a shimmering panel, then snatched it back as if burned. This is impossible." "It is not impossible, father," Elara said, stepping forward. "It is real. The Althea is awake. Welcome, children of the hearth." The Althea resonated, its voice not just in Elara's mind now, but a soft, harmonious resonance that seemed to emanate from the very air, touching the minds of all present. "It has been a long sleep. Shiwei. Society. And Mado." The elders recoiled, startled by the direct mental contact. Lyra stumbled back, clutching her amulet. One of the other elders cried out, a sound of genuine fear. "What is this sorcery?" the elder exclaimed, his eyes darting wildly. "It is not sorcery," Elara said, stepping between them and the ship, projecting calm. "It is the ship. It is speaking to us." Kale, though visibly shaken, slowly turned to Elara, his eyes filled with a terrifying mix of wonder and betrayal. "You said a song, Elara, not this." "Song is a pathway, Elder Kale," the Althea interjected, its voice soothing, resonating with ancient wisdom. "Pathway to understanding. Allow me to share it." "Convent, Odyssean." Then, the chamber went dark, save for the gentle pulsing of the wall patterns. And the music began. It started as a single, clear note, vibrating with incredible purity. Then another, and another, weaving into a delicate melody that spoke of infinite quiet and distant beauty. It swelled, adding layers of harmony, voices both human and ethereal, singing in a language that was not spoken, but felt understood on a deeper level than words. It was a lament, a yearning, a soaring hope. It spoke of departure, of wandering, of the vastness of space. It spoke of a home left behind, a journey undertaken, and the dream of return. Elara watched the elders. Lyra had lowered her amulet, her face rapt, tears silently tracing paths down her weathered cheeks. The other elders stood transfixed, their initial fear giving way to awe, their expressions softening, loosening. And Kale stood utterly still, his eyes closed, a single tear escaping from beneath his lashes. The rigid lines of his face relaxed, and Elara saw, for the first time in years, a glimpse of the man who had once sung her to sleep with fragments of that very melody. The song built to a crescendo of breathtaking beauty, a symphony of longing and love for the stars, then slowly faded, leaving behind a profound silence, broken only by the quiet sobs of Lyra. When the last note had dissolved into the air, the soft, starlight luminescence returned, slowly illuminating the chamber and the faces of the elders. Lyra was the first to speak, her voice thick with emotion. "The lullaby of the lost stars," she whispered. "It is real. It is more beautiful than the legends dared to dream." She looked at Elara, her eyes shining. "You were right, child. You were right." Kale opened his eyes. They were red-rimmed, but cleared of suspicion, filled instead with a dawning comprehension and a deep, aching sorrow. He looked at Elara, then around the chamber, then up at the ceiling, as if seeing the layers of rock above them for the first time, not as protection, but as a cage. "The forgetting," he murmured, his voice hoarse. "It was real. All of it." He clenched his fists, then slowly unclenched them. The weight of generations of deliberate ignorance, of lost heritage, settled upon him. "We have been living a lie. Truth forgotten, Elder Kale. But not lost forever. The journey can resume. The hearth still calls. No, Apsichkerin." Kale looked at Elara, a complex mix of emotions warring in his gaze, regret, pride, fear, and a nascent, terrifying hope. He had spent his life safeguarding his people's existence beneath the earth, believing it to be their destiny. Now, his daughter had shown him a sky he hadn't known existed. What does it mean?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Not to Alara but to the ship itself. "What do I do now? You remember. You choose. You embrace your heritage. The Althea is ready. The stars are waiting." Elara stepped forward, placing a hand gently on her father's arm. "We find the hearth, father. We go home." Kale looked at her, then back at the glowing pulsating heart of the Althea. The silence stretched, filled with the hum of the awakening ship, and the unspoken weight of a future irrevocably changed. The decision was not his alone, but he was the elder. He was the one who had to lead. The thought of exposing his people to the unknown, to the vast, terrifying emptiness of space, sent a shiver through him. But the song had touched something deep within him, a chord of memory and longing he thought long dead. He closed his eyes, taking a deep, shuddering breath. "This will change everything," he said, the words heavy with both dread and a strange, exhilarating promise. "Our entire world, our way of life. Growth often requires change, Elder Kale. And the universe is far vaster than this single cavern. And Nasri. Yandel. Yadi. I." Elara waited, her heart pounding for his answer. She knew it wouldn't be easy. The journey to the stars would be long, fraught with challenges, not least of which would be convincing their entire hidden civilization to step out of their comfortable, albeit confined, reality. But now, she wasn't alone. The Althea had awakened, and her father, the steadfast guardian of their forgotten past, had finally heard the song. The first, fragile step towards the starlight had been taken. The hearth felt a little closer. Her father's gaze, usually so steady and unwavering, now held a tremor of ancient fear, mingled with a spark of something she hadn't seen before. Hope. He ran a hand over the cool metallic skin of the Althea, a gesture almost of reverence. "The songs. They speak of a time when our ancestors knew the sky, knew the stars," he began, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the chamber. "They speak of a great forgetting, a retreat into the earth when the sun grew too harsh, when the air turned to poison. We built this haven, a temporary shelter, meant only to last until the world outside healed. But we forgot the until." He turned to her, his eyes serious. "To convince them, my star child, we need more than a song. We need proof. And we need the Althea." The ship, as if sensing its cue, hummed brighter. A section of its hull shimmered, dissolving into a translucent screen. Images flickered into existence, swirling nebulae, distant suns, the pale blue marble of their homeworld, vibrant and alive, seen from above. But not the barren, scarred world her people believed lay beyond their shielded domes. This was a vision of green forests, vast oceans, and a sky filled with gentle clouds. "This is what our ancestors saw," her father whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "This is the hearth, waiting to be rediscovered." The revelation sent ripples through their hidden community. At first, there was disbelief, then anger from the elders who had maintained their ancient comfort for generations. They accused her father of heresy, of endangering their carefully preserved existence. But the Althea was undeniable. Its projections were too vivid, its data too precise, its ancient energy too resonant with their deepest forgotten longings. Her father, with her by his side, she whose name was now whispered with reverence as Elara, the Starchild, stood before the Grand Council. He spoke not of escape, but of return. He spoke of legacy, of the courage of their ancestors who had built their sanctuary, not as a prison but as a cocoon. And Elara spoke of the song, of the yearning in their hearts that the Althea had awakened, a yearning for light, for space, for the forgotten dance of rain on open ground. The tide began to turn. Young faces, normally filled with the quiet resignation of their confined lives, now looked up with a burning curiosity. Old hands, gnarled from generations of tending to underground hydroponics, trembled with a yearning for real soil. The Althea became their beacon, projecting not just images of the past, but simulations of their future, New habitats rising on a revitalized surface, children playing under a real sky, the vastness of space beckoning beyond. The decision wasn't unanimous, but it was overwhelming. A new energy coursed through their community, replacing quiet routine with purposeful fervor. Teams began to reactivate long-dormant systems within the Galthea, not just for space travel, but for terraforming, for atmospheric regeneration. They weren't just leaving, they were preparing to hello their old home to make it ready for their return. Elara spent her days learning from the Walthai's vast database, her mind expanding with every bite of forgotten knowledge. She learned about stellar cartography, about ecological restoration, about the delicate balance of life on a vibrant planet. Her father, the steadfast guardian, became the unwavering leader, guiding his people with a wisdom tempered by their forgotten history. Months turned into a year. The Yalthea hummed with renewed life, its systems online, its purpose clear. One day, a small reinforced probe, built from salvaged parts and guided by the Halthea's ancient sensors, broke through the last layer of their subterranean refuge. On the main viewscreen in the central chamber, a gasp rose from the assembled crowd. A single, unwavering beam of sunlight pierced the darkness, painting shimmering dust motes in the air. It was faint, filtered through layers of dust and atmospheric haze, but it was unmistakable. The true sun. Not a projection, not a memory, but a living, breathing reality. Tears streamed down her father's face, his hand gripping Alara's. "It is time," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion and immense pride. The entire civilization, no longer hidden, no longer confined, gathered at the threshold of their ancient sanctuary. The Althea stood ready, not as a getaway vehicle, but as a bridge. Their journey wouldn't be to a distant star immediately, but to the surface of their own world, to begin the long, loving work of restoration. The true Starlight, the vast cosmos, would wait. For now, their first mission was to reclaim their own hearth. As the great doors of their sanctuary slowly began to retract, revealing a muted yet undeniably opening sky, Elara looked up. The air, though still thin and cool, carried the faintest hint of something fresh, something wild. She imagined the trees, the rivers, the vibrant life waiting patiently beneath the dust. She reached out, feeling the cool, gentle breeze on her palm, a sensation her ancestors hadn't known for millennia. Her heart, no longer pounding with fear or urgency, now swelled with a quiet, profound joy. The hearth wasn't just a destination in the stars. It was the rediscovered potential within themselves, the courage to step into the unknown and reclaim their birthright. The starlight felt infinite, boundless, and utterly attainable. And the hearth, yes, the hearth felt closer than ever before, bathed in the soft, hopeful glow of their own rekindled light.